Hey guys, so I've been watching a few channels lately, and they've done a bunch of videos that focus on getting your comic book crowdfunded and all the different things you need to do and figure out to make sure your campaign is a success. One of them is Adam Post's channel. He's got a series, and another one is The Replicator that's Rob Arnold's channel, and he's got a few little videos on there talking about some good stuff. So I've done a video just recently looking at figuring out numbers and costs and all that sort of stuff. I needed to figure out how much I would need to raise in order to do a certain stretch goal. So if you want to check that out, go check my videos. But this one, I wanted to talk about having a pitch document, and that's pretty much just a document that has everything that I might need to say to anyone to explain what my book is about, what my campaign is about. I'm hoping I can go on some live streams at some point. It's always a disaster if you get on a live stream and someone asks you a question and you don't have an answer for it. Usually you want to have something enticing to say, something that's going to sell your book. So in the spirit of that, this is something I've come up with, and I just thought I'd go through it with you guys. Maybe you have some suggestions, improvements, something I've missed. So my book is called The Lucent. That's actually the series name is The Lucent. The property is called The Lucent. The first book in the series is called Wakingdream. So I've got a quick elevator pitch, just a one-liner, in case anyone asks me for that, which reads, "When her dreams and reality collide, a young woman is thrust into the middle of an ancient conflict." And that's really obviously very broad and vague, but you get a sense of, I guess, the kind of story that you're going to get. I've got my protagonist in there, and we hear that it's a story about dreams and reality colliding. So expect weird things, maybe some strange events, strange powers, strange characters, that sort of thing. So then I've got a sort of more extended pitch for the Lucent itself. This is the entire story. This is what the Lucent story is about. And it reads, "The Lucent is a mystery sci-fi fantasy set in a world not too dissimilar from the world you know, but where nothing is quite as it seems. It's a place where ancient shadow societies, hiding in plain sight, train a select few to tap into mysterious abilities, while rival factions fight a secret war for control of the future. You may not always get a chance to read out something as long as that, but you may. It just depends on the context of, who's asking or how in depth they want to get. But yeah, that's the sort of the overall story of the Lucent. If you were to describe what is the Lucent about to someone overall. And then if someone wants to know specifically what this first book is about in the series, so it's called Wakingdream. It's the first book. In Wakingdream, the first book in the Lucent series, we meet Ella Forsyth. That's my protagonist. A young woman who appears to be living an unremarkable life, except for her dreams, where she's visited by the enigmatic Damon Spectre, who's teaching her things she never thought possible. But when the barrier between reality and dreams begins to blur, she'll be thrust into the middle of a conflict that threatens to turn everything she knows upside down. It was really hard for me to write this because while the story is a fantasy, it's hard to call something a fantasy because I don't want people thinking it's elves and dwarves and gnomes or anything like that. It's not a fantasy in the sense of Lord of the Rings. It's a fantasy in the sense of, say, The Matrix or something like that, which is why I add sci-fi to it, even though it's not real. It's not pure science fiction in the sense that, say, Star Trek is science fiction. It's more science fiction in the sense that Star Wars is science fiction. There's definitely more fantasy than science going on in this story. But more important than all of that is mystery. I'm all about mystery. I love peeling back layers slowly. I find the anticipation is almost always better than the reward. And yeah, so it's hard to describe what happens in the first book because I've purposefully kept the book pretty ambiguous. There's a lot of foreshadowing, but there it is. I think that's as good as I'm going to get it. And yeah, people like to do these mixed comparisons, 2 movies or 3 movies, and I went with The Matrix meets The Da Vinci Code. I've never heard something like that before. They're pretty 2 different movies, 2 different kinds of stories, but I'll explain a bit later why I've put those 2 together. So, onto the book itself. So the book that I'm making in this campaign will be $25 plus shipping, and backers will receive an 80-plus page full-color book, which includes a 55-page main story, 7 character interviews, and a sneak peek of the next book in the series, Painted Death. So the 55-page main story is pretty self-explanatory. The 7 character interviews are, think of something like a character bio, but once you see this story, it doesn't really fit to have traditional, what would you call them, comic book bios. It's not that kind of a story. So I thought instead of that, to get to know the characters a bit more, I thought a sort of outside of the plot, I suppose you could call it a fourth wall break interview, where just a unknown interviewer asks questions to these characters in the book, and their answers reveals something. Well, actually, it reveals a lot about the kinds of people they are and what's in store for them for the future of the series. And yeah, I'm going to have about, I think it's about a 8-page sneak peek at the second book, Painted Death, to entice people to come back again once they've finished this one. I'm going to be having a 300 GSM, which is 12-point matte laminate cover, and 130 GSM 85-pound matte text pages. So, this stuff, if anyone asks, I've got it right there on hand, ready to answer. Extras. So these are selling points, things that I can use to entice people to check out my campaign. So if you sign up to the mailing list on the pre-launch page, and you can do that right now, I'll leave the link in the description, you can get notified by email when the campaign launches. And if you go on to back the book, you'll receive an exclusive postcard that won't be available anywhere else. If you don't sign up on that page, you won't be getting it anywhere. So yeah. Everyone who backs the book in the first 24 hours will receive a complimentary sketch card. And after the first day, those sketch cards will only be available in a separate $35 tier. So this is, I'm kind of learning from the Ethan Van Sciver method, offering something on the first day to get backers excited about the campaign in those first 24 hours. If this ends up being too much work for me, then that is a problem I will be only too happy to deal with when that happens. I've never done a crowdfund before. I'm pretty unknown, so I'm not expecting obscene numbers. But if this is going to inspire people to jump on board on the first day, I'm, of course, more than happy to give out a free sketch card to anyone who backs on that first day. And I'll also be offering a limited amount of original art pages, including the cover. Now, I'm a digital artist, so how's that going to work? Well, I'm going to redo inks in traditional format for some of the pages up to a limited amount, just so how I have something to offer for people who want that sort of thing, because I'm that kind of guy. And I heard someone suggest this. It was probably Ethan again saying just offer a couple of these pages for people who want them. So yeah, I'll be doing that as well. I haven't figured out yet how much they will be. Probably be pretty reasonable, but yeah, I'm probably going to ask around to get ideas of how much they should be and take a look at some other campaigns and kind of see where I sit in the pecking order of original art. Right, so onto the tiers. Anyone ask me about the tiers, I can say, okay, we're going to have the feature tier is a book plus a head sketch, and the head sketch will be A4 size, so slightly above, that's slightly bigger than the comic book, and that'll be $50 plus shipping. Then there'll be the regular, just the book, that's $25 plus shipping. You'll get a book plus a sketch card for $35 unless you were someone who backed on day one, and then that I guess no one's going to back that one on day one because they'll be getting it for free anyway, unless they want 2 sketch cards, in which case they could back that one. So then there'll be, I have, here, look. I have put in some, I didn't realize I'd put in some prices here for the original art. These are obviously just working figures. I'll ask around and see if that's a appropriate figure. If that's too much, too low, I don't know. I've got no idea. I've never done this before. So maybe if you have an idea, you could leave a comment below and let me know what you think. Maybe check out my art and see what you think it's worth and hurt my feelings. I don't know. Maybe you'll say it's $20 and I'll say, get the hell out of here. It's going to take me, a couple of nights after dinner to pump out one of these pages. So yeah. Anyway, goals and stretch goals. So always important to have a stretch goal in a campaign. Keeps the people interested as the campaign progresses. You've got to overcome that dreaded mid-campaign slump. My fixed goal, I don't know if it's going to be 1K. It might be more than that. Probably will be more than that. 1K, 2K. I don't know. I think 3K might be too much. I really want to take advantage of possibly getting to the goal as soon as possible. So I want to keep that number as low as possible. I'm the writer and the artist. I don't have anyone to pay. All I have to pay are printing and shipping costs and fees, obviously. So that number can be as low as possible, but it's an 80-page book, so it can't be too low. I don't want to make goal and then everyone forgets about the campaign for some reason, and then I'm stuck having to pay out of my own pocket. But anyway, let's say 1,000 for a fixed goal, and I was thinking maybe a free postcard at 3K, so that will be a different postcard to the one I have offered for the people who sign up. This will be obviously a different one that they will get as well. And everyone, being a stretch goal, everyone gets that who backs any tier, and maybe a free color print. Oh, there you go. A4 is 8.25 by 11.5 inches for anyone who's interested in that size. I just picked that size because it's the biggest size I'll be able to ship flat. You won't have to fold it. So maybe offer that at around 5K, and then a spot UV cover at 7K, and I'm just hope above hope that I could possibly reach that amount, because that spot UV cover is going to really sell the concept. It shows Ella, it looks like she's kind of flying towards you, but then you notice, no, she's actually falling towards you. And then you notice, no, actually you're looking down into a puddle on the ground. It's this sort of play with the whole concept of dreams and reality and multi-layers and all that sort of thing. And having a beautiful shiny spot UV area on that puddle over the matte laminate would just sell that concept, and it would just look so good. But I've done the numbers. If you want to go check out the video that I did a few days ago where I ran the numbers, it's not possible to get that done underneath around 7,000. So fingers crossed I can get to that point. Logistics, which is shipping. I'm aiming for $12 shipping, and that's very low because I'm in Australia. And shipping, I'm going to be shipping almost all of these books, I presume, overseas. But being the writer and artist, I am only eating into my own profits when I do that. I've got to think of the customer first here and what they're used to buying on US-based campaigns. And yeah, I want to be competitive. So $12 US shipping is actually a fair amount. It covers the lion's share of the shipping costs, but it won't cover it completely. But I'll just have to factor that into my own profits. I think it'll work. I'm pretty sure it'll work, but I'm going to double check and triple check before I go ahead with that. Anyway, each book will be individually bagged and boarded, and they'll be bagged and boarded in an A4 bag and board, so that the book itself will sit. It won't. The board will be bigger than the book, so that you won't have. That'll really reduce damages to the corners when it's getting sent internationally. And then that bagged and boarded book will be shipped in a flat box. That will the book and the bagged book will sit really tight in that box and protect it from anything that the postal service or the airport handlers or whoever have to throw at it. So sometimes I see on streams people ask, what's your background? Who are you? And that's a great question because, in these campaigns, you're selling yourself. So I just put in a few little things about myself that I thought might interest people. I know this stuff, but everyone's prone to get flustered when they're on the spot. So I thought, I'll just put this down in the document and so I can refer to it if I need to and not have to stress. So I started collecting comics and drawing comics at the age of about 11. I was a big fan of Spider-Man, Ghost Rider, and Spawn. My favorite artists were Todd McFarlane, Jim Lee, and Mark Bagley. I started printing and selling t-shirts with original art at age 19. I sold them Australia-wide. So I self-published and edited 6 issues of a skate zine in conjunction with a photographer friend of mine. And we had that printed and distributed internationally. So that's a bit of, there's a lot of similarities in doing that as with printing a comic book. It's a lot of the same headaches and long nights are involved in that. I have 16 years working in graphic design and publishing, and that includes pre-press and typography and stuff like that. And I ran a successful Etsy store selling funny signs for 6 years, shipping thousands of orders. And I have 5 stars on that store and lots of happy customers. And it was hard work doing that. And in the end, just handling all the constant shipping and the taxes and all the sort of headache stuff, it just kind of took all the fun out of it, and I was just sort of became more interested in drawing my comics, so I kind of had to give that up, sad as it is. It was quite successful. So, inspiration for the Lucent, people ask that sometimes. The story itself grew out of my own personal experiences with lucid dreaming, and I'm not going to get much more into that because that would start picking away at the mystery of my story, and as I said, I'm all about mystery. So the art style is inspired by French graphic novels, which is, I think that's something a bit interesting and might catch the eye. Obviously, I grew up on American comics, but when it came to thinking about how I was going to make my own book, I really looked to Europe. I just felt like that style was more in line with the kind of story that I'm looking to tell, which isn't a superhero story. It's not a horror story. It's just a kind of story that I found more in French and European graphic novels. So I adapted, stole, copied that kind of style for my own work. I mentioned earlier the Matrix and the Da Vinci Code. So the Matrix is a huge influence on this story. It's been a huge influence on me creatively in so many ways. It was an influence on my lucid dreaming. I used to have lucid dreams that I was in the Matrix and I was like Neo. And yeah, that is as fun as it sounds. So that really inspired the sort of the action and the dream references and the overall style, atmosphere, look of what I'm making. Obviously, the end result is going to be completely different, but that's sort of where the impetus comes from all that. And the Da Vinci Code is, if you've ever seen the Da Vinci Code or you've read it, it's all about sort of an alternate vision of history. This idea that what we think we know about these really big things and these really foundational elements of our civilization might be not what we think they are, and the whole mystery behind unraveling that puzzle, that's sort of where I'm going for with that. And in line with that, it's inspired by alternate history researchers like Graham Hancock. If you're familiar with him, he's a guy who's looked into, maybe our ancient history isn't exactly what we thought it was. Maybe it's much older and much stranger than we envision. And there's a lot of that going on in the Lucent. Dead Letter Circus is an Australian band, one of my favourite bands, and I've been listening to them since the very start, and their music has inspired me a great deal in writing this story. Here's the hardest thing that anyone ever asks you: what makes your story special? Why should people back you? Why should people support your story? And it's a really hard thing to articulate. Everyone thinks their story is the best story ever, but getting that across without sounding like an egomaniac or an idiot it's a difficult thing to do. These are a couple of points I just came up with. Maybe they work for you, maybe they don't, but they are what they are. So I've been working on this story for close to 10 years now. So it's highly polished to a high sheen. The dialogue is as crisp as I can possibly get it. Every single word in this book has been carefully selected to make sure that each character has their own voice and what they're saying is important to the story. There's no filler. There's no extras kind of thrown in there to pad out any of this. So I've got 3 main character arcs going on in the Lucent, and you'll see the Wakingdream book 1 you'll see the start of all of them. It's really the introduction to all of these 3 character arcs, and they start in vastly different places and epochs. You've got one that starts, I think it's around 7,000 years ago off the top of my head, another one that starts 2,000 years ago, and one that starts in the present day. And so you probably undoubtedly be scratching your head wondering, what the hell does any of this have to do with each other? But as the story progresses through the books, these arcs begin to intertwine, and they lead to an ultimate climax where all 3 are combined into one. I've spent years researching and meticulously world building this universe, for want of a better word, and constructing the lore, the rules, the history. And even though Wakingdream is only going to scratch the surface of that, I think doing that is just so integral to giving the story gravitas and depth, and emotions and motivations are all so important to every character. So yeah, the story incorporates real myths, real legends and theologies. I mean, real in the sense that everyone knows them and they exist out there. Some people believe in them now, some people believed in them in the past. That's neither here nor there, but they're from all over the world, and they're all incorporated into this world that I've been building, and that's all to give it this really epic scope that just underpins the whole story. This is real stakes. This is not just about one woman and her life or one man and his life. This is about all of us, and it's about our history as human beings and civilization as a whole. And lastly, the art style, including the line work and the highly atmospheric colors that I've been really working my butt off over the last year to get to a stage where I think I'm happy that they're the best that I can possibly make them. And the colors really help to tell the story. They're all inspired by, like I said, European graphic novels, which I think is a bit of a unique selling point. You know, we've seen a few mangas and anime-inspired books come out recently, and, you know, that's bringing in a whole new crowd. Some people might not like my style, but then others might look at it and say, wow, this is really different, and, you know, something I want to see more of. So, yeah, hopefully that's a good selling point too. Guys, I've been going on for half an hour now. This is the longest video I've ever done. Sorry to waffle on so much, but I just wanted to show you how I went through my pitch, how I came up with my pitch document. It's something I think everyone should have. Like I said, you don't want to get caught out umming and ahhing too much, saying you know 100 times like I do, and not selling your story when you have the chance. You don't want to get invited on someone's stream and then never get invited back because you were waffling on for 15 minutes about your cat and all sorts of strange things that have nothing to do with your campaign. So yeah, especially if you like the look of this, you like the sound of this, please sign up to the mailing list, get your chance to get that exclusive postcard, subscribe to the channel, follow me on Twitter. I'll be posting updates continuously up until launch of the campaign, and then it will just be on for young and old. So thanks for watching, and I will see you next time. Cheers, bye.